This is the review for your first exam from TSC. Let's look at the first problem now completely. So we need to make sure that we factor it out first. Is look at, it is known that we're going to have to solve this by grouping. So we're going to go ahead and put parentheses around the first two and parentheses around the second two. When you do that, we try to see what's in common. So in the first two, we can see that they're both divisible by 4 and that they both have an x squared in common. So when I factor out a 4x squared from here, we end up with x. This is a minus. 12 divided by 4 would be a 3. And since we factor out the x squared, there's nothing left over. Now from the second parentheses, 9x minus 27. They're both divisible by 9, a positive 9. So we're going to factor out a positive 9. When I divide 9x by 9 or factor out 9 from 9x, I get an x. When I divide 27 by 9, I get a minus 3. Remember that our goal will always be for these two to be the same. In this case, they are. So my answer will be x minus 3 and 4x squared plus 9, which came from here and here. Now, we need to see if we could factor out anything else. Well, x minus 3, it's already as low as it's going to get. Can we take the square root of 4? Yes, the square root of 9. But is this a minus? Since this is not a minus, we can't do anything. This here is our final answer. So that's problem number 1. It is worth 10 points. Problem number 2, worth another 10 points. So understand that they give me a number. Do? Well, in this problem, you need to look at the number that they give you. And right here, they tell you x is 5. So we need to see, it's 5 less than a negative 2? Nope. Is 5 in between negative 2 and 3? Nope. Is 5 greater than 3? Yes. Because it is greater than 3, then that means that we have to substitute the 5 in there. What is 3 times 5? 15. What is 15 minus 1? 14. This here is an easy 10 points that you should be able to get. Now the next problem, to look at it, factor the radical completely. So we have 45, but it is negative. So we need to keep in mind that this is the square root of a negative 1 times the square root of 45. But that 45 should be broken down into something that we could take the square root of, which is 9 times the square root of 5. So the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of a negative 1, like we've learned, is I. And the square root of 5 stays because we can't do anything there. So this becomes negative 12 minus 3i square root of 5 over 3. So at this point, I've asked that you guys do this, break it down into 2 fractions. So you should be able to see if it's reducible. So the first one reduces to a negative 4. This one, those cancel, so it becomes I square root of 5. And this here would be your answer. Now, for number 4, we will have to take each point. So I'm going to do it algebraically here. Negative 5, negative 3. So remember to multiply by a negative 1. And we end up with 5, negative 3. then we were going to be subtracting 2, which gives us 3, -3. And then we were supposed to move up. The up was for this one, up 1, which gave us 3, -2. So our first point should be at 3, -2. Next point there, -2, 3, multiply by a -1, which gives us 2, 3. Subtract 2, which gives us 0, 3. Add 1, which gives us 0, 4, which is right there. 1, -1, multiplied by a -1, which gives us a -1, -1. Subtract 2, which gives us -3, -1. Add 1, which gives us a 0. -3, 0. So then it's right there. Next point, 2, 2, multiplied by a -1. -2, 2, subtract 2, which gives us, oh, sorry, we already did that one. My bad. So sorry. No, we haven't. Just kidding. It's +2, +2. So we do multiply by a -1, which gave us a -2, 2. We do subtract 2, which is a -4, 2. And we do add 1, which gives us a -4, 3. -4, +3, right there. And the last point, which is a 4, 2, multiplied by a -1, which is a -4, 2. Then we subtract 2, which gives us a -6, 2. And then we add 1, which gives us a -6, 3. So -6, 3 is right there. So this here's the transformation of each of those points. Pause this video, slow it down. Also kind of see that you could do it by doing the reflection. Now to put it in words. So this is the way this is supposed to be. F of x is shifted 1 unit up, right 2 units, and then reflected over the y-axis to get g of x. So that's what you're supposed to put there. Now remember, this question is exactly the same as the questions that will be on your test. That one problem is going to be exactly the same. So please be ready for it. Next back part of the page. So we're looking at the first one. Once again, we have to see what we could factor. All of these are divisible by 5, and we could factor out an x. When I do that, I end up with 3x squared minus 22x plus 35. Now, keep in mind, that cannot be reduced anymore, so we have to multiply this one times this one, which gives us a little table of 100 and 105 that has to add up to a -22. You have a so in order to find the factors, use your calculator. Do 105 divided by 1. If we divide by 3, it won't work. If we divide by 4, it won't work. Divided by 5, it's 21. Divided by 6 won't work. 7 would with 15, and that's it. Now keep in mind that that's a positive 105, so they're either both negatives or both positives. Because your middle number is negative, they both have to be negative. So I get a -22 here, -26, -38, and a -106. So the ones who give me a negative 22 are these two. So when I come back over here, that is 5x. Remember, we bring down our first number, put the two numbers here that gave you that negative 2 there, and the last number. So the first and the last number come straight down. Now we're going to be doing grouping. So to do the grouping, please understand that we're going to group the first two and then the second two. So this is still a 5x. What do the first two have in common? Just an x. So this becomes 3x minus 7. The second two are divisible by a negative 5. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is 3. 3x, sorry. 35 divided by negative 5 is a negative 7. So these two are the same, so we have accomplished what we need. 5x to 3x minus 7 and x minus 5. So this is my answer. Go back and look at the steps, pause it, cover up the problem, do it again in a separate sheet of paper until you keep doing this over and over until it makes sense. Now for this next thing, it says to start off at a 4. So I'm going to start off 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's plug in those numbers in here. 4 minus 4 is 0. 0 squared is 0. 5 minus 4 is 1. 1 squared is 1. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So right now, those are the points that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch them. 4, 0, 5, 1, 6, 4, and 7, 9. So this is enough for you to sketch the graph. You're going to have to sketch it, so make sure you sketch. What is the domain for this problem? Because we're going to have to find a domain for the original and the inverse. So your domain, remember, this is where it starts. It starts at 4. So my domain is going to be from a 4 and it goes on to infinity. My range, where does it start here? Where y is 0. So my range is from 0 to infinity. It includes the points because you see them there, it's an actual value. Now we've learned how to mathematically find the inverse. So right now we have y equals x minus 4 squared. So the first thing to finding the inverse that we learned in 2.7, you have to switch your x and y. Here we go. So in order to solve for the new y, which is here, I have to get rid of the square root of the squared by doing the square root of both sides. So this becomes the square root of x equals y minus 4. Now that minus 4, I need to go ahead and move it over. So I do a plus 4 plus 4. So y equals the square root of x plus 4. Or if you want to rewrite it correctly, square root of x plus 4. Now the plus 4 is not underneath the square root. Now we easily learned that in order to find the inverse of a table, all you had to do was switch your x and y. So this became 0, 4, 1, 5, 4, 6, and 9, 7. So this is the inverse function. If I were to plug in a 0 there, that's exactly what would happen. So when you sketch this one, it starts at 0, 4, 1, 5, 4, 6, and 9, 7. And this graph goes like this. So when I look at this, my domain now starts at 0. So for my domain, it goes from 0 to infinity. And for my range, it starts at 4. Oops. So please understand that these switched. That one went, the domain here went to the range there, and the range here went to the domain there. Just the way they switch here, and switch here, that's what happens there also. Moving on to number 7. So for number 7, this needs to go into here and into there, because we have to do f of g of x. So this is going to become 16 over x plus 5 over 16 over x plus 5 plus 4. So anytime that we have a fraction and a whole number, we need to make that whole number a fraction. And by looking at it, the only way you could add fractions is if we have the common denominator. So this is why we're going to be multiplying by x plus 5. So this is going to become 16 over x plus 5 over 16 over x plus 5 plus, we have to distribute here, 4x plus 20 over x plus 5. I'm going to rewrite it as one single fraction in the bottom. 16 over x plus 5 for the top. We still have to put it. 16 plus 4x plus 20. All of it over x plus 5. Now we can combine these two. So this becomes 16 over x plus 5 over 4x plus 36 over x plus 5. Now from here, this is where I tell you to rewrite it the way they used to give it to you when you were in elementary and middle school. That divided by this. Now keep in mind that KFC rule, where you keep the first one. So we keep the first fraction. We change the division to multiplication, and we flip the second one. So once we have this, notice that these cancel. So we end up with 16 over 4x plus 36. But when I look at 16, the 4, and the 36, they're all divisible by 4. So I'm factoring out a 4 for right now. Changing the 16 to 4 times 4. These guys cross out, so this becomes x over x plus, 4 over x plus 9. So the equation here should be this. When you graph this into the calculator, you get a graph that splits. There's like this. So what is the domain of it? It comes in from a negative infinity to a negative 9, union from a negative 9 to infinity. Graph it so you could see what happens there. And the very last problem, easiest problem, please don't miss it. Y is a negative 2. So we go to our y-axis, we look for a negative 2, and we graph that line right there. This is the line of y equals negative 2. So hopefully this video helps you. Use it, study it, see it as many times as you need.